Welcome to another monograph on the Plant Profile podcast. Today I've got a different angle to approach this with, where normally we're talking about some of our native plants around this area that I'm able to speak into. Today we're actually going to be speaking into a highly invasive plant that really is taking over our forests all across the United States and across the world in general, known as garlic mustard, Aliaria petiolata, or sometimes I mistakenly call it Aliaria petiolata. I have to preface this with a quick disclaimer to once again mention that I'm an herbalist, not a doctor. Any information you get from the podcast should be further researched by you, ideally by at least 3 sources. And if you're not sure about a plant that you're going to put into your body, ask a doctor first if you have the ability, or an herbalist, a professional herbalist. And if you're going out foraging for something, always make sure you're identifying the right plant. Aliaria in particular is fairly easy to identify with its aroma and its particular leaf structure, which we'll dive into here in a moment. Always bring a trusty field guide book or use a plant identification technology as well. Once you get to know garlic mustard, though, I'm sure you'll be able to find it easily and consume its delicious, medicinal, and nutritious content on the regular. Now, I'm not the type of herbalist to go out here and demonize an invasive species, but this is one of those species that is highly, highly aggressive and really should be limited by foragers and restoration workers as well, of course. Garlic mustard is a highly recognizable plant. It's a biennial herbaceous flower that grows a few inches tall in its first year and around 1 to 4 feet in its second year. The first year forms a bright green rosette of leaves that are heart-shaped and deeply toothed serrations. In late winter or early spring, these first-year sprouts can actually turn into a kind of reddish-purple coloration to them. In their second year, they tend to form alternate leaves up the stem that are more of a triangular appearance, still with some serrations, however. They also form small white flowers that adorn the top of the garlic mustard, that form from May to July, that have those classic 4 petals of mustards. Its roots take a curved S shape with cream coloration and are usually fairly easy to pull up as well. But importantly with that, if you only pull up the aerial parts, just the leaves, the stems, and the flower, but leave the roots, they will definitely grow back. The aroma is really the dead giveaway for Aliaria petiolata. This is a plant that, as the name says, garlic mustard, smells like garlic. If you crush any part of the plant, whether it be the root, the leaves, the flowers, you're going to get a garlicky green kind of mild spicy aroma. This is a dead giveaway for Aliaria petiolata. Now, Aliaria petiolata is traditionally native to Western Europe, thought to have evolved in northern England in particular, but it's, as I mentioned, now invasive in forested settings all around the world. For me personally, I've seen Aliaria petiolata growing down by the Spokane River in a particular area I'm doing some restoration on that is a forested setting with pretty damp soil throughout the entire year. And so it kind of indicates where Aliaria petiolata generally likes to grow, which again is in forested settings. If you live somewhere that's a little bit more of a damp area, gets a lot of rain, perhaps you're west of the Cascades, or maybe you are on the East Coast in a kind of rainier area, Aliaria petiolata oftentimes can grow just in a general forested area. Within places that are a little bit drier, high deserts, and forested deserts like Spokane's region, and montane regions as well, you can find it generally growing near water. In these forests, it generally grows around deciduous trees or in hedges in damp, rich soil, where it can actually take over the entire forest floor. It prefers full shade to part sun, and I've actually seen the tallest ones around here thriving in forest clearings that only get sun in the morning or the evening time. But it also tolerates a wide range of soils, from sand to loam, as long as they aren't too acidic, and it prefers those soils to be nutrient dense. It also prefers to stay damp, and grows in microclimates that are created by taller plants like birch or willow. These microclimates are somewhat of a signature for Aliaria, where it prefers, as I mentioned, shaded areas. And actually, you'll notice if you find Aliaria, oftentimes if you find one patch, you'll see it spreading throughout that entire shaded area. And as I mentioned, overtaking other native plants. Part of the reason that I'm bringing this plant to your attention is I'm actually working on a restoration project right now trying to replace garlic mustard with nettles, another competitive plant that's a native plant to the United States. As we mentioned, it does have some very detrimental ecological interactions. It's one of the first sprouts in late winter or early spring to pop up, giving it a competitive edge just to begin with right there. But it's also what's known as an allelopath. Now, allelopaths are types of plants that inhibit the growth of surrounding plants in their area, in this case through glucosinolate compounds, which are common to brassicas, though garlic mustard does so very aggressively. Those glucosinolates also disrupt fungal and bacterial growth, which may inhibit tree, water, and nutrient uptake. So you're directly influencing areas where these different organisms can grow in the future by removing the Aliaria petiolata. That's an important note there, however. This antibacterial and antifungal property will come up again when we talk about its medicinal actions. Now, another thing about Aliaria petiolata is that deer and most herbivoreal mammals leave garlic mustard alone while consuming native plants. And this is another reason why garlic mustard is so successful, where it takes up the space where dead or damaged foliage is and begins breaking that down. On a more positive note, though, it also increases soil pH over time, which can be beneficial for some other species. And as we mentioned, eventually, if it gets too acidic, the garlic mustard can't grow there. Garlic mustard has traditionally been used for its wonderful edible and medicinal properties that come in together. As the name says, it smells like garlic. It's actually a type of mustard that can be used to make mustard. But also medicinally, it has wonderful affinities for the respiratory system, the gut, the cardiovascular system, and the liver, all coming together into a similar medicinal property to garlic or onions. And interestingly, in the doctrine of signatures that is produced by Aliaria petiolata, those heart-shaped leaves actually somewhat indicate how they work on the body as well. Medicinally, this is actually a plant that has a hodgepodge of wonderful actions that it takes on the body. It's an expectorant, so it's going to help with clearing phlegm, thinning out phlegm, and clearing it out of the respiratory system. It's also a stimulant diaphoretic, meaning it's going to help with promoting sweating, relaxation of venules, and helping to promote circulation as well as a circulatory stimulant. It also thins the blood mildly, similarly to the way that garlic does as well. And on top of that, as we mentioned, is antiseptic. It kills bacteria and fungi, so this can be used not only for internal usage, but also for things like mild wounds and cuts, that kind of thing. In fact, a traditional recipe is to combine wine with garlic mustard to create this antiseptic formula. Further, it's not just going to be antimicrobial, but also kills and clears worms from the digestive system as well, a vermifuge. And then to top it all off, it's also wonderful for our liver as a bitter cholagogue and choleretic, meaning it's going to help to release and produce bile. It does this partly through the sulfur pathways. When we eat these glucosinolates, it causes our liver to begin converting them, and then those glucosinolates attach to toxins and help to carry them out of the liver and then eventually out of the body. So it thins the blood, it cleans the blood. It's a cleansing plant on the whole body, and that's kind of its overall image here. Because of that, it has affinities for the respiratory system, the guts, liver, and the cardiovascular system. And with that respiratory system particularly, that expectorant property comes together with its warming relaxant property, which can act as an anti-asthma medicine that can limit the likelihood of an asthma attack. This is one of the traditional ways that this plant was actually used quite frequently. Some other traditional uses for it, however, would be for, as we mentioned, cleansing wounds, cooling fevers through promoting sweating, so great also for colds and flus there too. In fact, this is a plant that overall is lovely to turn for during a respiratory infection in general. And that's partially because, as we mentioned, it's great for breaking up stuck phlegm. It also mildly is going to reduce blood pressure in a similar way that garlic can as well. And on top of that, it's an excellent food source to turn for. Now, that's actually what I used it for originally. It wasn't for medicine, but was for food. That has, as the name says, this garlicky, mustardy kind of flavor to it. And you can eat any part of this plant. The roots are delicious during the early spring, as we mentioned. Leaves become spicier in the spring and summer. And then those flowers are a nice garnish. Those seed pods are a nice mustard option to turn for. Some of the traditional recipes that are used for this, and some that I've done as well, would be things like pesto. It also is a nice ferment as well if you want to make like a sauce or like a marinade for chicken. One of my favorite ways that I've used it before is actually combining it with some water, with a small amount of honey and salt, and letting that sit overnight. And just overnight, that does a little bit of fermentation that ended up turning it into a excellent marinade for chicken. But it's in general used in hearty dishes. You can use it in soups. That's another great option to turn for there. You can use it as more of like a herb for seasoning things, or you can actually just consume it as is, as a salad. The roots themselves also traditionally, if you ferment them for long enough, are used to make an alternative to horseradish with a slightly less potent pungency. It is important to note, if you're somebody who's really sensitive to mildly bitter plants, this plant does have some bitter notes to it, but those can be reduced through cooking or fermentation. The other flavors that it really produces are these pungent, warming, spicy type of flavors with a nice kind of green flavor to those leaves as well, making it a great option to turn for as an addition to many different recipes. Aliaria petiolata is very dense with vitamin C, and also some vitamin A as well. As we mentioned, it's also got glucosinolates, which are a sulfur compound. It also has a ton of other volatile oils that give it its strong aroma. There's a good amount of chlorophyll, and especially if you get the fresh leaves, you can get a good amount of enzymes from that as well, which are going to assist with digestive support in general. Now, if you want to harvest Aliaria, you can harvest it in late winter to early spring for spicier roots and kind of more mild leaves, spring through early summer for its spicier leaves, and then midsummer for flowers and seed pods. Those seed pods make an excellent spice to turn for as a garnish and also as an option to make homemade mustard. Plus, as we mentioned, it's very easy to identify. It's one of those plants that when you find one, you oftentimes find a ton of them. In fact, that's actually one of my main reasons for bringing up Aliaria in the Plant Profile podcast here. Now, if you're a forager in the United States and you find a large patch of Aliaria petiolata, I highly encourage you to take as much as you possibly can, while planting native seeds to replace them. Ideally, something that can also, of course, thrive in the same environment, like nettles, something that's going to compete well against these highly invasive brassicas. Now, another thing that I got into when I first discovered Aliaria petiolata was gifting it to people, harvesting as much as I could to give to neighbors, to the corner store guy, and also there were homeless people in the area where the Aliaria petiolata was growing. And because it's so easy to identify, this is one that I encouraged and showed some of these people. And that's one of our areas as foragers that we have an ability to really make a positive difference on other people's lives around us. Aliaria petiolata is one of those plants that, and from what I've seen, encourages healthy interactions between people. Despite the fact that it's a anti-communal plant when it comes to the other organisms it grows around, within human culture, it is a highly communal plant, easy for most people to enjoy the flavor, and a lovely plant to gift to other people, whether you gift them a pesto, or just the plant itself, or teaching them how to go out and find it themselves so that they can also help to limit this invasive species. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not trying to demonize Aliaria petiolata. It's an absolutely delicious and wonderful plant to work with. It's actually one of the plants that I find the most joy with foraging. It gently bounces in the breeze, forms these little patches of beautiful flowers, and the leaves are these bright green coloration that just signal early spring to me. When I see these plants, they are a staple of spring through summer that I absolutely love to turn for as a food source in many different applications, from salads to soups to pesto. So I hope that this information has been helpful for you. Go out and look for Aliaria petiolata. I almost guarantee if you can find a forested setting with a damp forest floor, if you look for long enough, you're going to find it. Of course, as always, if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach me at theearthengrove@gmail.com, where I will get back to you as soon as I can. I hope you have a beautiful, blessed rest of your day. Take care, and be well.